Hello everybody, and today's video is going to be all about 10 times teachers got owned by their students, and it's by the richest, again. So if you like this video, go ahead and check out their channel, and also give them a like to their video. So yeah, let's just get into this video. Let's move on.
We go to school to learn. In fact, from the time we are little to our years as young adults, we spend a good chunk of the day learning everything from math to physics to English. Naturally, during these many years of school, we can come across more than a couple teachers who seem to make things harder than they need to be. The answer? Sweet revenge. In the following examples, you'll see it's the students giving the lesson, as these teachers end up getting owned for a variety of reasons. Now, to make sure you don't get owned by us, pay attention and watch out for our quiz. We'll ask it during the video, and we hope you know the answer. But before we start, make sure you have your textbooks and last night's homework all finished. Attendance is mandatory, so push that red subscribe button so we know you are here and ready to go. Literally. Odds are that at some time in your schooling, you took a history class or two. You know, that class where you learned a lot about really famous people who did stuff a long time ago. In addition to having to read a lot, history classes are also notorious for requiring students to write papers. If you're lucky, you only had to ever write 4 or 8-page research papers. If you weren't, then massive 20-page essays complete with footnotes and bibliography were likely your reward. In any event, one of the favorite assignments of a history teacher is to have students pretend they are in the shoes of a historical figure. In one particular class, students were asked to pretend that they were Chinese immigrants in the United States. Their task was to write a letter home to relatives in China describing the experiences they had. While this seems pretty straightforward to you and I, one student clearly decided to put one over on the teacher. When they handed their assignment in, what greeted the teacher was a page full of Chinese characters. Well, you can't say the student didn't try to make the assignment authentic. Out on the court. In the classroom, there is always a joker or two lurking and waiting for their chance to make the teacher look foolish. Whether saying something sarcastic to the teacher or drawing a rather phallic shape on the blackboard to create embarrassment, the battle between teacher and student is never ending. Sometimes, however, this clash can move from the classroom to the playing field, or in this case, the basketball court. Now, normally we wouldn't suggest going up against your gym teacher in any sport because they have years and years of experience. They also control your grades and can make you do extra laps after everyone else heads to the shower. In this case, a student squared off one-on-one with their teacher while some other students watched on. In the battle of youth versus experience, it was anyone's guess who would triumph. Once the competition got underway, however, the student quickly became the master with some sweet moves that left the teacher laying on the hardwood. Unable to match the speed and reflexes of the student, we think this teacher definitely knew they had been owned even before the ball went into the basket. Poke owned.
Wow.
There are two types of people in this world, those who like math and the rest of us.
I do like
okay,
math.
we might be getting a bit harsh here, but for many people, math is just really hard. After all, there are all those integers,
Math is not
fractions,
hard
and
for
variables
me.
that it just gets so
Maybe in
confusing. Let's be
high
honest,
school.
if 2 trains leave New York and LA at the same time, the only thing we really care about is whether we have a window seat and access to drinks. Ultimately, many math teachers know their subject can be both difficult and dry at times. The good ones will try to address this by making their questions fun or relatable. For example, one math teacher decided to dress up their question by phrasing it in terms of Pokemon. They asked students how many hits Bulbasaur could get using a razor leaf attack 40 times. Clearly a fan of the game, one student owned the teacher by answering that such a scenario was impossible due to certain rules. That said, even after schooling the teacher, the student did give the right response. Academic ownage. Physics professor Dr. Jonathan Katz is a bit of a controversial character. Academically, there is no doubt that this guy knows physics and is super smart. However, outside of the lecture hall, it's a bit of a different matter. You see, Dr. Katz has a history of saying some rather inflammatory and politically incorrect things. Take, for instance, his views on women in physics. When asked why there were so few female staff in the physics department, our wise doctor responded that women are less interested or less talented in physics than men. You could likely hear the cringing of his fellow professors when Katz said that. Not intimidated, one female student called Katz out and publicly owned him in the school paper. Opinion writer Jen McLish responded in an op-ed piece where she deconstructed many of Katz's controversial theories. Not pulling any punches, she also pretty much summed up her opinion on him by writing that life had many unanswered questions, such as, what is the meaning of life? And how does Professor Katz still have a job? We wonder how Dr. Katz feels after getting so brutally owned by a girl. Lost in translation. Learning a new language can be fun. It can also be a challenge at times. After all, you need to memorize all those words, know how to conjugate various verbs, and then figure out where to place everything so it makes sense. And don't even get us started on pronunciation and accents. For some reason, our French accent still has a heavy dose of Rastafarian in it. Anyways, one way we show how much we have learned about a new language is through a comprehension test. One student taking Spanish wrote that her teacher would ask questions that were logical and illogical. By answering which sentences made sense, the students could supposedly prove whether they had mastered the language. When the teacher presented the student with the phrase, "El toca el piano en la piscina," the student said that it was a logical statement. Well, that statement actually means he plays the piano in the pool. Naturally, the teacher penalized the student for an incorrect answer. However, we imagine things got strange when the student presented the teacher with this image. Yep, that's a guy playing a piano in the water. Not so illogical now, is it? Alright, class, it's time for your quiz. How many students are enrolled in public elementary and secondary schools in the United States? Obviously, we'll accept approximate answers, but try to be as close as possible. Think about it a bit while we show you 5 more teachers who got owned by their students. Watch that spelling. You likely know that every teacher is a bit different. Some are laid back, while others can be real dictators. However, there's also no doubting that teachers are always looking for new ways to motivate their students. Bonus marks, candy, a break from homework, you name it, and odds are there's a teacher with that method of inspiring and rewarding the flock. Then, there are the sarcastic teachers who motivate through other means. In this specific case, we have a teacher who has stumbled across a post on Facebook talking about how another teacher motivates bad students by attaching a Burger King application to their tests. In an effort to sound witty, the teacher then reposts the idea and says she may start doing the same thing as her new classroom strategy. There was just one problem. She misspelled strategy in a rather humorous backfire. A student picked up on the spelling error and immediately posted a reply. In it, they pointed out the teacher's spelling mistake and went the extra step further to provide a link to Burger King's online application. Well played, sir. Well played. The bully. Many of us have been there. You give a wrong response or forget something important, and the teacher ends up embarrassing you in front of everyone. Sometimes a witty comeback or humorous answer isn't in the cards when it comes to dealing with situations like these. After all, push back too hard or say the wrong thing, and you could find yourself in the office with the principal. We don't think the student in this next case really cared about that. In a Russian classroom, students learning English had clearly upset their teacher. As picture and video evidence suggests, the teacher decided to make an example of one little girl by bringing her up to the front of the class. In what must have seemed like an eternity to the student, the teacher yelled and berated her for making a mistake or failing to learn certain words. In any event, things escalated to the point where the teacher started to poke the head of the little girl. Even this seemingly timid little girl could only take so much. With cameras rolling, the girl snaps, turns, and delivers a kung fu kick right to the teacher's groin. Having fully owned her bullying teacher, we bet no one ever picked on this girl again. Taking action.
Good.
When a teacher getting owned goes viral, you know it's likely either over the top or something that is really inspiring. With Jeff Bliss, it's a case of the latter. The high school student made national news when he got into an argument with his history teacher. Allegedly, the teacher wasn't very motivated, didn't spend a lot of time dealing with students one-on-one, and was generally uninvolved in the development of the students. According to Bliss, much of the teaching and learning was simply presented to students in information packets that they would read and then be tested on. When the class was informed that they would have a test on a certain topic, Bliss decided he had had enough because he didn't think the students were being prepared properly. Asked to leave the class, the student did so, but not before delivering a rather frank and inspiring speech where he pleaded with the teacher to be more involved in the development of the students and give them a better chance to succeed. In addition to absolutely owning the teacher, Bliss's statement pretty much owned the entire American public school system. Long time coming. Odds are that you've had at least one teacher who was always a little too mean or sarcastic. It happens. Then there's the story of the student only known as Johnny. Faced with a terribly mean teacher, Johnny served up some justice, which makes us think he is somehow related to Vito Corleone or Eric Cartman. You see, Johnny's algebra teacher was notorious for being rude, sarcastic, and mean to students. As Johnny struggled in math, he naturally became a target to the math teacher's fury. Day after day, the teacher insulted Johnny and pretty much embarrassed him in front of the rest of the class. From calling him a slow boy to saying that his questions were the dumbest she had ever heard, things got pretty bad. But Johnny played it cool and got the last laugh when he went to the principal. Naturally, the principal wanted the math teacher and some other high school administrators present to hear Johnny's side of the story. Only when the time came, they didn't hear Johnny's side, but several minutes of audio recording Johnny had compiled in math class. Needless to say, the math teacher was totally owned and reportedly fired because of this. Awkward burn. If you're a teacher, then you likely hate phones in the classroom and probably have a policy either banning them or requiring them to be shut off. If you're a student, then you know that most teachers have no tolerance for phones or any sounds they make. A group of Michigan college students knew their teacher, Stephen Barrows, hated phones in class. They also knew Mr. Barrows had a policy that if your phone rang in class, you had to answer it while on speakerphone for the whole class to hear. Talk about embarrassing. Well, the class decided to turn their teacher's policy against him in a rather uncomfortable and funny way. One day, one of the girls in the class had a friend call. When the phone rang, Mr. Barrows, as expected, asked the speakerphone to be turned on. Things quickly got uncomfortable when the voice on the other end announced it was the doctor from the pregnancy clinic and that the student was going to have a baby. Clearly uncomfortable, Mr. Barrows listened while the doctor revealed more sensitive information. At the end of the call, the students revealed it had all been an April Fool's Day joke. Reportedly, Barrows no longer has the strict phone policy in his classroom. So, do you have an answer for how many students are enrolled in public elementary and high schools in the United States? The final answer? Over 50 million. That means there are over twice as many public school students in America as there are total people in Australia. Well, that brings about the end of our video for today. If you're still in an education frame of mind, then check out some of the other videos we have here at The Richest. From bad teachers to bizarre classes, we've got you covered. Just remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you tomorrow morning in algebra class. Bye-bye for now.
Okay. So I'm gonna end the video off right there. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.